In the United States, despite the fact that the Trump administration's travel ban has temporarily been put on hold by a U.S. federal appeals court, there's still great concern over whether or not it's going to be reinstated. Our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Ayotunde Balogun, reports on the immigration policy and its effects for Africa, especially the affected countries, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan, which are predominantly Muslim nations.
The restraining order of the Ninth Circuit Appeals Court in San Francisco on the travel ban is still in force. President Donald Trump says there's a possibility his administration may rewrite the order with stricter laws in place, even as protests have continued on the matter. Tia Osho, who leads an advocacy group, Black Alliance for Just Immigration in California, says the travel ban is unacceptable.
When we heard about the travel ban and read the executive orders, we're really concerned because, number one, we know and see that it's very clearly targeting African immigrants. And we heard right away from immigrants from Somalia and Sudan in particular about loved ones and family members and individuals that have been stopped from getting on airplanes, who were being detained at airports. So in the United States, we have a border patrol policy where each major airport is a checkpoint as well.
For the time being, more immigrants can fly into the United States and connect with loved ones. However, Mesfin Bashir, a former refugee and now president of Ethiopian Dream Center, a social service agency in Massachusetts, gives his view.
What Trump has done is not against Islam, but against Islamic terrorists, the human beings, what we're talking about. So he's doing proactively, trying to defend the country, and I like he stands for Christians.
How will this policy affect Africa? An associate fellow of the Institute of Policy Studies in Washington, Amira Woods, explains.
And I think the first came, not long after the inauguration address in the form of these executive orders. And so let's recognize that of the 7 countries that were spotlighted in the executive orders, 3 were African, right? So, Libya, it's Sudan, it's also Somalia. I think we've got to look beyond the words. Look at the actions, and there's still a lot more to see, but the actions in this first month, quite frankly, worry many.
President Trump has since described the federal appeals court ruling on the travel ban as a political decision, as he looks forward to challenging the ruling yet again. It's likely the Supreme Court will hear the matter this time. From Washington, D.C., Ayotunde Balogun, Channels Television News.
Well, to economic issues, Nigeria's gross domestic product contracted by minus 1.30% in the fourth quarter of 2016. That's according to the National Bureau of Statistics in its Q4 2016 and full year 2016 GDP report released today. The NBS says the decline is less severe than the figure recorded in the previous quarter of minus 2.24%, but is lower than the growth rate recorded in the final quarter of 2016. In the meantime, analysts have been reacting to the latest GDP figures. A group of panelists at the Channels-LCCI Business Roundtable believe Nigeria needs 2 consecutive quarters of positive growth to get out of recession, as well as an improved agriculture and manufacturing sectors to boost the country's economy.
In reality, you need 2 quarters of positive growth to actually come out of a recession. And we had already started predicting that we are actually going to see a slower dip on the recession and a growth, which is coming back to the reality that everybody is actually saying, or actually looking at a last quarter recession to a first quarter 2018 growth year, where we can actually say we're coming out of recession. And you can actually see it also in the positive lights. Figures coming out actually by September, August, we're already doing over 1.2, 1.3 million barrels a month a day. In
terms of oil production.
And that itself has seemed positive because all of us actually saw that by December, which is the last quarter of the year and the last month of the year, we were going to expect that the central bank would see a better position because we're actually seeing positives on the actual oil, and that itself in turning positive on the actual economy.
The fact that agriculture and agro-allied is being relegated and is not being given the pride of place has impacted on the GDP somehow, in the sense that for the country to go out of recession, you must be a producing country, intensively producing country. And the role of agric and agro-allied at this point cannot be overemphasized in terms of social and economic framework of the country. Production has to be given enormous priority. And how do I mean? If you look at all the most prosperous countries of the world, you discover that they focus a lot on agriculture. Right now, as I'm talking to you, the world has reached 7.5 billion in population. And you discover that about 6 countries are actually covered half of them, and those are the United States, China, India, Brazil, Indonesia, and Pakistan. All of these countries I just mentioned, they have a very robust and sophisticated economy predicated on agriculture. So in Nigeria, if we're really going to get out of the woods, then we have to pay a lot of attention to that.
In the last quarter of last year, you know that foreign exchange was not very much available. And in the maritime sector, the forex is a common denominator. So importers didn't have sufficient access to foreign exchange, despite the special window created for them. You saw the spiraling rate of the naira to the dollar. Based on that, there was a drastic 70 to 80% reduction in cargo throughput. The volume of cargo imported into the country dropped.
Still to come on Network Africa. An Egyptian teenager seeks to warn young school students and teachers about the dangers of bullying. They stay with us.